order at 8:34. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast via local cable access channel WCAT. It'll be broadcast on Facebook and YouTube. If anybody in the audience is recording, please let us know. So first item on the agenda is sign all current bills. Have you had a chance to look them over?
Haven't even seen them.
All right, I'll kind of glance through them real quick.
They're enough older.
Do you have an extra agenda?
Give me one. Actually, that's Dave's name on it.
Okay, I'll set that.
You good with those? Take a motion to sign all the current bills.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's see, second item, minutes, it says June 4th.
I did not complete them.
Okay,
I can put them on the agenda for the next meeting.
okay. Yeah, so we'll push those off to the next meeting. FY 25 sewer abatement applications. So we got quite a few. And it looks like all these were confirmed with no water usage, Lisa.
Actually,
For-
there's a couple of them that, there's, so there's one that, from the information I found out about it, would not be eligible, so anyway. So, 2273 Main Street, Sophie Sullivan, care of Rebecca White. I spoke to the woman who filed the application. The water is turned on. She was filing the application because she thought she shouldn't have to pay $630 for the year when the apartment, the condominium is used intermittently. She told me that there are people who stay there, the water's turned on and does get used, there's people who stay there, I'm not sure if it's family members who come into town and stay in town for a short time, or if they're using it as like a Airbnb or Verbo, but the water is turned on and being used, and that's 2273 Main Street in West Warren.
Oh, okay.
So
So yeah, I
that
mean,
one
if the
does
water
not-
is on and it's used intermittently,
Yeah,
that one wouldn't
one
qualify.
does not qualify for an abatement under the guidelines. That's one of the ones that, so, I checked with the town clerk about the ones that, filed for an abatement for an empty apartment. And the list that I gave her, this is what I got from the town clerk's office. 14 A Street, apartment B is vacant. 19 Central Street, apartment A is, one person living there, apartment B is vacant. 93 Chapel Street, the only occupant listed is Karen Cassen. 15 Cummins Pond Road, there's no A and B designation, there's two people listed living there, James and Cynthia. Then, 2294 Main Street, he's seeking a $630 abatement for an apartment over the garage. According to Lori, the person in apartment B hasn't responded to the census since 2023, so that either means, they're no longer living there, or somebody else is living there and they're not taking part in the census. 2353 Main Street, Dorothy Watazik. Two people are listed, Leo and Dorothy, in Unit A, and Unit B is empty. 40 Mechanic Street, Patricia Burnham and Mark Bourbonnais. Unit B hasn't responded to the census since 2021, and Mark Bourbonnais is in Unit A. 38 O'Neill Road, Louise Mary Berthium. At the time the census was done in January, Unit B was vacant. It was just Mrs. Berthium living there. I did speak to her on the phone, and she said her son might be moving into the apartment, but she wasn't 100% sure. And she told me if her son moved in, it would probably be in the spring, like in May or something. 34 Old West Brookfield Road, Mark Graveline. There's two apartments, and apartment B is vacant, and there's 3 people in Unit 2. So there's no apartment number, and it just lists 3 people in Unit 2, and then, he said the lower apartment has been vacant since June of 2023 on his application. 39 Parkview Street, she's seeking an abatement for 2 EDUs out of 3 EDUs, and she's the only person listed on the census living in Angela in apartment A. And 112 Pulaski Street, Ted and Mary Marcinek are listed as living in apartment A, and there's nobody listed in apartment B. 61 Summer Street, Howard and Sylvia Pratt. The town census shows apartment B is vacant. And 71 Summer Street, Larissa Van Valkenburg. Census shows only Larissa in apartment A, and that's as of the town census that was done in January of this year.
So basically, we have one that we're denying?
Well, the water's turned, 2273 Main Street, the water's turned on, and it's, the
So we're denying
unit
it,
is being
yeah.
intermittently used, so,
Yeah, so if it's being intermittently used, then,
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the situation is. She didn't go into details about whether it's, like a short-term rental thing, or like a, Airbnb or Verbo or something like that, or if it's maybe family members who stay there when they come into town or something.
yeah, but even so, if it, intermittent use, and it's
Yeah,
probably
I
getting
mean,
some
it's
sewer
not-
use.
It doesn't fit the guidelines to qualify for an abatement. And I did give everyone copies of what the water district sent me about the ones where they built. There was one that I didn't include with the water district figures, and that was because I knew it was getting sold in June, and, I actually checked with the water district about that one, and they hadn't gotten back to me. That's 1198 Main Street. The abatement was filed by Anthony Ranka. It was formerly Ron Ranka's house. I hadn't heard back from the water district office, so I called Dave Johnson, and at the time I talked to him, he was with Andrew Lalacious, the other employee at the water district, and they told me that the water's been shut off for over a year at 1198 Main Street, and they haven't gotten any requests to turn the water back on. And then I gave you copies of what the water district sent me on the other ones that are empty with.
Yeah.
Want me to start signing them or?
Well, are there any you have
Just
questions?
There's one that's at the bottom of the pile that I received a month and a half past the filing date. And the board, it would be up to the board to decide what to do with it.
That's 2245 Main Street.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I realize, like, to me, I realize the property's in the middle of being sold, but, you know, if we're saying you have to have these applications in May 1st, and then we're turning around and saying, well, we're gonna let this one slide, that's, you know, just setting precedence for anybody in the future to say, well, you let this one slide, why aren't you letting mine? You know, I turned it in late. You know, if we're gonna set a date that they have to be turned in by, you know, we need to hold to that date, to me, or, you know, if for some reason we feel like we need to adjust that date.
Well, I mean, the only, I know those, the year of COVID in 2020, they did allow more time to file abatements. They allowed till June. I think they extended the deadline to June, but that exception was made during COVID because a lot of people were, you know, because of what was going on with the distancing and people not
Right,
being able to.
yeah, and
go to
it,
the
you know,
building
that
in
COVID
person.
was was an unprecedented time, you know, everybody was kind of doing things a lot different, because everybody was kind of figuring it out as they went, but, I mean, to me, it's, you know, no reason there's no reason this couldn't have been done. You know, it seems like somebody just went, oh, you know, we realized we could be abating these, so I'm gonna turn them in now. And you're talking well over a month late. We previously told one other applicant that, you know, they were late, so we don't even have that in the stack, so it's like, can't tell one, we can't look at your application, then tell another one, well, we'll throw it in front of the board and see what they say. You know, either we need to either stick to that deadline or, you know, do something different with the deadline if we're not gonna stick to it. You know, if we, you feel if we need a later deadline, or?
I just would like to just have a little input on that. Sometimes if somebody's living in the house and they just want to abate half of it, and they're right here in town, but in that particular case, the building's been empty, and the man had died a few years back, and, well, maybe two. But his niece was handling it, and I believe she's from Sunderland, so she
Northampton.
wasn't right here. That's why my thought is I would let it go, but if it's been used right along and that one hasn't,
Right, well, that, and I mean, you know, I realize, you know, some of these people aren't right in town, but, you know, we're accepting the abatements by email too, so it's not like they have to physically be in town.
May I speak?
Yeah.
We had another property that's on that list where the person passed away, almost a year and a half ago, and his son filed an abatement. He filed it on time. He filed it in October, you know, and I did mail 2 sewer bills out last year, so, you know, that's just my
Yeah,
commentary.
yeah, like I said, it's, you know, I understand people, you know, to me, I understand people's situations. It's just to me, if we're setting a deadline, we need to either hold to it or change that deadline. So we're not setting a precedence of, well, we accepted this one a month and a half after. Cause then that's just gonna open room up for, you know, in the future, somebody else files it late. And then we, you know, turn around and deny it right off the bat, and they're, look back and go, well, you had this one, 2 years ago you approved, why are you not letting
I
it
mean, you could
through?
allow a little bit of wiggle room, like say May first falls on a Friday, and someone emails me an abatement application on Friday, May first, and I don't get to the office till Monday and check my email, and I receive it like on May fourth or something.
Little except, little ones like that where, because email gives you the timestamp when they emailed it. They emailed it May 1st and, yeah, like you said, it fell on a Friday. Or even if it's postmarked on May 1st.
Excuse me, could we get on with this? Because we could be sitting here all day talking about it.
So,
That's the only one, if you don't want to give it, we'll go
I-
along with you on that. You know,
Okay.
I think differently, but we'll go along with it. We gotta get this moving.
so that was otherwise that was the only one that didn't, of all these ones here, because I kind of skimmed through them.
Can I just tell you something?
Yep.
And we're gonna let our secretary do this, because we're gonna put denied or approved and sign our name, and then she can fill in the rest of it.
Right. But I'm just asking
Okay,
that
I'm just telling you this is
outside
your
of,
first time.
yeah, out of all the other ones, that was the only questionable one.
Yeah.
The other ones, all right.
So we're denying that one.
Yeah, denying the
Two of them,
2245
73.
Main Street.
2273.
And the 2270? Oh, wait, yeah. So the 2245 is
We're denying that one.
that one. What was the other one?
2273.
That one, Too many close together numbers, so now I'm getting them mixed up in my head. So, trying to look for the application. 2273. Okay, that's all right. Water's not shut off. Okay.
So that's denied, and then the other one, 2245.
Yeah, so we'll accept all the sewer abatements except for 2273 Main Street in West Warren, and then 2245 Main Street, Warren. Stick those on the bottom. They're separated.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I will say, I think the board made the right move with doing that because of the fact that these abatements all have to be treated equally in the same manner that everybody else applied in. So I think that is the right move for the board.
I appreciate that. All right, so,
Do you want to talk about the next one while you sign in, or?
yeah, let's see, discuss and vote on application from Fountain and Sons Construction Co. to put a sewer stub on Brimfield Road for future side street subdivision at current gravel pit site. So I know he was looking into seeing if he could find any,
Yeah, I looked through all of the files that I'm aware of, and I don't have anything that's giving me any indication of the depth of the current line that's there.
oh, okay,
I did speak with him, and we spoke about that being a pressure line. He said that he has a gentleman from Broomfield coming in that's going to assist him into putting the tap in, if that's what we approve, because he's had experience in doing so. I myself have not done that, and he told me neither has he. So, but he said he does have a qualified person that can do that. That's my only concern, was that being a pressure line.
okay. I know we had told him to kind of put in an application that we'd waive the fee, so at least we have a record, for the case property ever gets sold, or anything like that. Because what was it? We just had one other property that didn't even know, or property owner said there was a stub, and I guess we weren't aware of it or whatever, so I'd like, I mean, I don't understand his wanting to do it, and it makes sense if they're already tearing up the road, now would be kind of the time. I think if, you know, you're comfortable with it, and, as long as we're getting the documentation where the stub's gonna be for the future. Has he turned in that application, Lisa?
No, I haven't received it, I'm not sure. I'm
He hasn't-
assuming
he
he
hasn't
didn't
came
go to
back to
the
me.
plant and turn it into you.
No, he
So I
hasn't.
haven't received anything.
Oh,
yet.
okay. What your thoughts are, Joan?
I don't know, I would vote to let him do it, you know, once he gets everything in.
Okay.
And you have to do it rather quickly if,
Right, yeah, I know, he was looking, cause trying to tie it in with them
Yeah.
paving the road, so, I mean, I'm fine with it, you know, pending he turns in that application, we'll waive the regular application fee. Just so we know who the contractor is, and we'll have all the maps or whatnot, so we know where that stub is for our records. So,
Is somebody gonna get ahold of him and let him know that?
Lisa, you have his contact info?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's not officially approved until,
Right, won't be officially approved,
until
cause
he
he's,
submits the paperwork.
yeah, so, Lisa, if you wanna let him know, we'll let him go ahead, but he needs to submit that permit.
Okay.
You know, the permit application,
And the insurances.
insurance and all that will look, you know, as long as all that's fine, then he, you know, we'll go ahead and approve it to let him go ahead. And, you know, we'll have him, as part of that application, he's gotta give us the completed drawings anyways, which he said he would do. Number 6, discuss and vote on the sewer connection permit for 109 East Road.
So basically, Joe Pecori came by my office last week to bring me the permit, and I told him that we would need a current insurance certificate and an as-built drawing to be attached to the permit. He told me he would email those items to me. I wrote down my email address on a sticky note form and gave it to him. And I told him that the meeting was going to be today, that I would need to receive that documentation before the meeting. I have not received it. I checked all my emails I received when I was gone last week. I checked with Ralph, he did not receive the documents, so basically, the required paperwork is not attached to the permit.
Oh,
for
right.
A 109 East Road.
So I mean, right there, we don't have paperwork.
right,
Can't approve something we don't have paperwork for. And then I know we also had the issue with him with that, the other
Damage ladder.
damage lateral. And I think you were speaking with, legal about that?
Yeah.
And-
They're working on
Oh, okay.
drafting him a letter.
Okay. So, I mean, at this time, just for the lack of paperwork,
you'd say no.
yeah, we'd be denying that application. You could resubmit it with all the proper documentation and we'll look at it again there. So I guess we need a vote to deny that, or,
Okay, I'll make a motion to deny,
Well,
So-
he didn't really submit an application, so there's really nothing.
okay, cause he only submitted, he didn't do a full alright.
So can he give you a check in the app?
He attached a check to it, I have it with, I thought I had it with me, right? He just gave me the front page of the old sewer application form.
I would've gave it back to him and said it's incomplete.
Well, I told him I was gonna need the documentation, and I told him he would need to send it before the meeting, so I was quite, you know,
You can table it.
Yeah, table it for now. All right, number 7, Ralph's report.
Yeah, start with the storm pumps. We did receive information back from Ty and Bond with their recommendations for the company to be awarded the contract. It's Ardent, I believe, which was the lowest bid, and I don't have the exact number. I think it was under 80,000, if I'm not mistaken. I do have some of the funds for that. I would have had all of them, except for I have to use some of that to pay Ty and Bond for their services. So
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking I'm gonna be around, and again, top of my head, 25, maybe $30,000 short on that particular line item, which the money was allocated for. I do believe if I can transfer some funds around, I will be able to cover the majority of that, pending any alterations or requirements once the job started. So I guess as long as it's approved here today, they will contact Ardent and let them know they won the bid, and we can start working on setting up when and how and whatnot at that point.
Now, that was a project where we kind of had discussed, because we didn't have the motions in time for the
Yeah.
meeting.
So what will happen, Mr. Chairman, is that now that there is a recommendation by Ty and Bond to award to Arden, myself as the Chief Procurement Officer will review that recommendation, make a determination to agree or to not agree, and then to move the project along. The next phase would be the funding phase and the contractual phase as to whether or not Ralph has the funds available to enter into this contract, needs to be determined. And then ultimately, a contract would come before the board to review, and ultimately we'll get to signing and codifying. The contract will have to be drawn up and get in place. Everything needs to be verified, their bonds, their insurances, to move forward. Once that is done, then we can get a commence date, but there's a few steps that would have to be done to do this. So this is just like a reporting back phase because there's no contract in front of you guys today. We have to do some behind-the-scenes work. Ralph had mentioned that he may have to submit a transfer request that would have to go in front of the FinCom and the Selectmen. So there's some moving parts to this project that would have to be done. I guess if the board is comfortable with the concept of potentially, transferring these funds, then we can continue to move forward in that direction. If the board is not comfortable with doing that, then we will have to put an article on at the fall to get the remaining funds. But it sounds to me like Ralph is anticipating some excess money in his expense account that he may be able to move over for this project.
Okay, can I ask a question? What did we vote on at last year's town meeting in '24?
For
We
what?
had 4 articles there, and do you remember what they were? But they're not all completed. And I thought there was something there for the sump pumps.
Well, I think he's using part of that article to fund this.
Because there's already been some, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, I think it's up, there's already, it's over, I think it's up around over $20,000 that's been spent on engineering fees. with
Yeah, but what was
so
the-
far.
I think it's
Does anybody remember the total amount of the article?
85 I put in for, and 32, I believe that has to go to T&D. So I have to make up to I'm gonna say 74,000. So I have to make up like 25 grand.
We're gonna have to stop this meeting and go to the,
Well, we can finish this meeting out and then open up the rate
whatever,
hearing right
I don't know
after.
the legal.
Alright, So I mean, we got a little bit. You guys got to do the background work. Ralph's got to kind of see if he, can comfortably shift money around. So we got a little bit of ways before anything, but as soon as
If everything worked out, hopefully, maybe we could get a contract before the board sometime in July.
okay, all right. Anything else you got for your?
The copper I talked about a little bit, we've got interim standard, and that standard is good until the following time they revamp. It's usually several years out, but it's not anything that, we're not doing anything on. We're still looking at opportunities to reduce that copper. As far as the plant goes, we've had a couple issues there in the last few weeks. We've had to replace some seals. We had to call in a Vactor because the primary pumps were clogged. We had to Vactor out the well and pull the pumps and remove all of the obstructions. So we've been fairly busy down there. The plant continues to run and meeting its requirements, so.
All right. Well, otherwise, outside a few issues, all is good at the time being. Knock on wood. All right.
So, excuse me, so Ralph, on that sump pump thing, scum pump, you got 69.5,
I
565?
No, I had on that line item a replacement 85,000,
Right, and then it shows you spent 15,435.
which is partial payment for time, which hasn't been completed yet.
Okay,
We haven't built this in completion. Something wants me to say it's around 30 grand total,
Mhm.
32.
okay, so,
So that would be minus the 85. And so it's somewhere around 25,000 to 30,000 to make up. Close to 25, I believe.
All right. Number 8, Lisa's report.
I don't really have much of anything to say. Basically what I have to say is I have one more round of commercial billing to complete. If I have to wrap up the billing for fiscal year 2025, I'll probably have to do an estimated bill for the accounts that are metered, because usually the water district doesn't have the figures available until after the first of the month. And then there's the ones for I know you usually get the figures on the first of the month, like, June 1st, July 1st from them.
The water district can get
The
dates.
filtration.
They can.
I mean, if I could send them a bill, like, I could send them a bill, I don't know if you'd be able to get their usage through, like, June, 23rd or whatever, and, because I know the quarterly bills, a lot of times they don't neatly go from the beginning of the month to the very end of the month. They, usually the water district sends their bill at meter readings, it'll be from December 23rd through, March 20th or something.
All right.
So I don't know if I'm still waiting for information on a couple of the accounts where I've sent out a request for the number of employees, and if I do not receive a response, by the time I do the billing, I will do an estimated bill based on the count I got from the last billing cycle.
But just the commercial billing that's got to go out.
Yeah. And then I'll complete all the billing that I'm doing for this year, and
All right. Number 9, comments and concerns.
yeah, I just have a question. You said that Arden was the one that got the award from Ty and Bond? That was 74,000?
I think it was around that price.
Okay, because that's what they had bid, but I didn't know if they had added anything on.
Not as of yet, no.
Okay. That's it.
All right. So I will take a motion to adjourn our regular meeting
Make a
and
motion to adjourn at, what is that,
9:10.
9:10?
And then I'm gonna